Super Saiyan God, Super Saiyan Greninja here, coming at you with another video, and today's video is going to be about my top 5 pick on what I believe to be the most overpowered Pokemon strategies in the VGC 2017. So let's go ahead and get right into it at number 5. Number 5. I just had to have this Pokemon somewhere in this listing. It is by far one of my favorite Pokemon, but there is a reason he's at number 5, and I'll get into that here in just a little bit. But for now, I'll go ahead and go over the set a little bit and tell you a little bit about how I like to use him. So as you can see, I have the full HP and defense investment with the +4 in attack. Now I know that most people like to go for a brave nature or an adamant nature, depending on whether or not they're using a trick room set, and they'll want to go ahead and go for a little bit more attack investment as well, but I have this specifically set up so that I can get that Normilium Belly Drum Z, which if you don't know, fully heals my Pokemon and then gives him the +6 boost from Belly Drum, and my attack's already going to be hitting like a truck anyways, so I would just rather go for a full-on bulky investment. I do go for Giga Impact over Return. Now, there's nothing wrong with Return. It is definitely a viable option. It's just, in my head, as far as the battle goes with this Snorlax, I'm trying to keep him in there as long as I possibly can until the last possible second, whether that be the end of my HP or maybe even the end of the Trick Room turn. But I'm going to get that Giga Impact out there as my last attack to do as much damage as possible. And you would be surprised how many things this thing one-hit KOs with that Giga Impact, and I'll also have some calculations here in a second about that. I tend to run Rock Slide with him because I also tend to run him with a Rangaroo, and typically I will do this setup where I'll Trick Room and then Normilium Z Belly Drum first turn, and then from there on out I will just Rock Slide and Instruct that every single time. That's two 30% chances of getting that flinch, and it's just a ton of damage. So let's go ahead and get into these calculations here. So here are those damage calculations as far as how hard Snorlax is going to be hitting after that +6 from Belly Drum, and as you can see, he's going to be hitting like a truck. Now for this example, I went with a very common VGC 2017 bulky attacker build for Mudsdale, just so you could see how hard Snorlax is hitting at neutral damage towards what's considered a very defensively bulky Pokemon, and Giga Impact is just about doubling his HP, and Return is actually already getting the Oko. It really is just as viable in my opinion. To me, it seems more viable out of Trick Room and an adamant nature. That way you're not suffering from the turn loss from Giga Impact. But in my case, since he's going to be in a Trick Room set, if I'm going to be running down the Trick Room time frame, then I need to be able to pull off a last minute move on that last turn if need be. That's just how I feel about that. And that's actually why I keep Snorlax at number 5, because honestly, he is way too dependent on that Trick Room. At least this set specifically, and if I get roared or even trick roomed again to reverse the effects, I'm basically a sitting duck. Number 4. So number 4 on this list is going to be Mimikyu, and I went ahead and picked Mimikyu for this because as far as Trick Room setup Pokemon go, there really isn't a better Pokemon at it than he is. I mean, all you gotta do is equip this Mental Herb to him, and unless they can one-hit KO him, or unless they have that Roar Pokemon ready to go turn 1, you're gonna get your Trick Room up. And even then, as far as the Roar Pokemon goes, there's only a handful of them that are actually being commonly used, so as long as you keep that in mind and counter accordingly, you really can get around it no problem. So getting into the set a little bit, I went ahead and went with full HP investment, and I went with 220 defense investment because I seem to have been running into a lot of Kartanas and Crocodiles and such, a lot of physical attacking Pokemon, and it just seemed like the better idea to go ahead and get that 220 investment into defense and whatever was left in special defense. And I went ahead and went with Destiny Bond as well because honestly it's just hilarious to use. I mean, you could probably use Shadow Sneak or something else as well, but I actually found myself using that on a lot of Kartanas, and it was always hilarious to get them off the battlefield with that, which Kartana being such a nuisance on the battlefield, that was always a great move on my part. Number 3. So I went with Tapu Fini in the number 3 spot just because of how versatile this Pokemon is. Getting into the set a little bit, Misty Surge right off the back is a very good ability. If you don't know what it does, it actually negates all status effects, and it also halves the damage of Dragon type attacks as long as you are grounded. It doesn't actually affect Flying type Pokemon nor do any of the terrains. And I go ahead and go full HP, full special attack, and modest nature because really that's all it actually needs. I really made this Pokemon a part of my team permanently because I was dealing with a lot of Torkoal and Lilligants, which if you recall after that Wolfglick video where he describes the set that he used, it just went crazy over Smogon. I don't know about the actual VGC in-game on the actual consoles. I just remember getting to about 1400 on the ranked and getting slaughtered by these Torkoal and Lilligants, so I just thought this needs to stop. So I came up with this set, and really it's just a counter all in one. Misty Surge negating any type of sleep, I'm not getting attacked barely at all by those Torkoals, and Rindo Berry just in case they decide to do some grass damage to me. And not only that, it works very well outside of just being a counter to Torkoal and Lilligant. Having Ice Beam, you can take care of Salamances, which are also very common in VGC. Moonblast for those pesky crocodiles. You know, you actually can get around 3 of like the main roar Pokemon just with this one Pokemon. So I just went with this just because of how versatile he really is. And I mean, his stats are nothing to smirk at either, because although special attack is kinda his defenses are top notch, and I think he is just an all around great Pokemon. Number 2. So number 2 on this list is going to be a Lola Marowak, and honestly, there isn't a better Pokemon for this position. I would have went with Finny over him, but honestly, because of that ability, Lightning Ride, I felt that since Finny does better fighting alongside Marowak versus Marowak just doing well no matter what team composition he's in, that made it a lot better for Marowak being on the number 2 position of this list. Not to mention that the most common set, which is what mine is very similarly based off of, just being downright awesome. This is actually pretty much how it's normally ran. Usually they put 180 in attack and then like a little bit more in speed, but I like to use this in more of a trick room favored scenario. I actually also like to put at least a couple of IVs in there because I have other friends that like to use Marowak in a trick room scenario as well. So I like to speed creep them, which is something you could do in a viable playthrough because I mean a lot of people like to run this in trick room and non-trick room. So speed creeping it in a trick room or speed creeping it in a non-trick room, it sounds like that'll go well either way. Now, that 68 in special defense actually works out perfectly because he is the perfect counter to Tapu Lele's. Now, 68 in that special defense is literally gonna give him enough special defense to survive one psychic in a psychic terrain from a Tapu Lele, as long as that Tapu Lele is timid, which most of them are. So let's go ahead and look at the calculator for that calculation. So here are the calculations I've pulled up here showing the Marowak in its VGC 2017 offensive set that I've tweaked to be more like mine, and the most common Tapu Lele Choice Scarf set, which is what you will more than likely see them using. As you can see, the Psychic is only just about there, but it is not able to quite kill my Marowak, and no matter what the situation is, as long as I survive that first Psychic, and as long as I don't get focused and get attacked again by something else, I am going to kill that Tapu Lele with a Shadow Bone, even a Flare Blitz if I want to keep it safe, because I do believe that Shadow Bone has a little bit less of a percentage as far as accuracy, but either way, it is the perfect counter to Lele in every way in my opinion. Number 1. So I just had to go with the Lolamuck as my number one position due to a few reasons, one of which being his typing. He has one of the best typings in the game, making him only weak to ground, and his moves are actually very good as well, since he can get that stab poison jab and give all the Tapus a run for their money, which in the 2017 VGC meta is very viable. Not to mention that stab knockoff, which if you're dealing with a Porygon 2 with Eviolite, or even a Marowak with a Thick Club, it does very well in those situations. Now there are many things that you could knock off of Pokemon to greatly assist you in battle, but those are a couple of the most annoying ones that I've seen going around. The Figgy Berry and Gluttony ability combo just does perfectly with a 105 base HP stat, so I feel like all of these things together make this Pokemon deserve the number one spot on this top 5 listing. Alright, so that wraps up this video. Go ahead and click that like button if you like what you saw. Hit that subscribe button. And if there's anything you want to tell me, or if there's any tips that you want to give me to help out my gameplay, go ahead and give me a shout out in the comment section.